The CIA's Phoenix program, America's shadow kill network in Vietnam, a war fought in the shadows, in the jungles of Vietnam. The war was not only fought with rifles, helicopters, and artillery. Beneath the canopy, away from cameras and official reports, another war unfolded, a war built on lists, informants, interrogation rooms, and silent eliminations. A war where the objective wasn't territory. It was people. In 1967, the CIA launched a program designed to dismantle the Viet Cong from the inside. Its method was ruthless: identify the members of the underground political structure, and neutralize them by any means necessary. The program was called Phoenix. To its supporters, it was a necessary tool to break the enemy's shadow government. To its critics, it was a decentralized kill network that blurred the line between intelligence and assassination. No uniforms. No battlefields. No rules recognizable to the outside world. Only targets. Only names. And a system built to make those names disappear. This is the story of the Phoenix program, the CIA's most controversial, secretive, and morally ambiguous operation of the Vietnam War. Chapter 1: Building a Program of Elimination. The Phoenix program did not appear out of thin air. It was born from a deep crisis inside South Vietnam. By the mid-1960s, the Viet Cong weren't just fighters, they had built a political and administrative network across villages, towns, and entire provinces. This underground system was called the Viet Cong Infrastructure, VCI, and it was the backbone of the insurgency. While American forces fought battles in the open, the VCI controlled taxation, logistics, propaganda, and intelligence in the shadows. They blended with civilians, operated at night, and governed entire populations without ever revealing themselves. Traditional warfare couldn't reach them. The US military struck what it could see. The VCI lived in what it could not. By 1967, Washington realized that unless the VCI was dismantled, the war would be unwinnable. The CIA proposed a solution: a centralized system for identifying, tracking, capturing, or killing every member of the Viet Cong political structure. The program had a name: Phoenix, inspired by the mythical bird reborn from its ashes. The idea was simple: destroy the VCI faster than it could replace its own cadres. But the implementation was anything but simple. Phoenix merged several intelligence units under one umbrella: CIA paramilitary offices, South Vietnamese police special interrogation centers, provincial reconnaissance units, PRUs, informant networks inside villages, military intelligence teams. This fusion created something new: a network capable of gathering local intelligence, conducting targeted raids, and eliminating individuals marked as VCI. The cornerstone of the system was the blacklist. Names were added based on informants, captured documents, interrogations, and surveillance. Each target was classified according to their role: political cadre, courier, logistics officer, tax collector, or propagandist. Once someone appeared on the list, Phoenix teams were authorized to act. Sometimes the goal was arrest. Other times it was interrogation. And often, especially in contested regions, the order was simple: neutralize the target. To support Phoenix, more than 40 intelligence centers were built across South Vietnam. Each center stored dossiers, maps, photos, and interrogation reports. Village chiefs, defectors, and informants fed the machine with new names. American advisors helped prioritize major targets. But from the start, the program walked a dangerous line. The VCI blended into the civilian population. Identifying them was often based on incomplete intelligence, rumors, or political motivations. In many rural areas, Phoenix teams relied on local informants who used the program to settle personal disputes. Even early CIA officers warned that the system could spiral into abuse. One internal memo predicted, without strict oversight, Phoenix will become a weapon of personal revenge. They were right. Still, to American command, Phoenix represented something necessary, an attempt to fight an enemy that lived within the population itself. A way to hit the insurgency at its core. By 1968, Phoenix was expanding fast. Raids became more frequent. Interrogation centers filled. Targets began disappearing at a rate that shocked even supporters. The program was alive. And soon, the world would discover just how far it would go. Chapter 2, Interrogation, PR used, and the rise of the kill network. The Phoenix program expanded quickly, and with expansion came its darkest machinery. To dismantle the Viet Cong infrastructure, the CIA needed more than names on a list. It needed information, fast, constant, and brutally precise. This led to the creation of interrogation centers across South Vietnam. Officially called District Intelligence and Operations Coordination Centers, they were built with US funding and staffed by South Vietnamese police and military officers, with CIA advisors overseeing key operations. Inside these centers, the rules blurred. Interrogations were supposed to follow legal standards, but on the ground, the pressure to produce results was overwhelming. The VCI were trained to resist questioning, to mislead interrogators, and to endure pain. Phoenix teams often had only hours to extract intelligence before a captured operative's absence was noticed by the Viet Cong. Reports that later leaked described beatings, electric shocks, sleep deprivation, water immersion, and isolation, techniques officially denied, unofficially tolerated, and widely documented by journalists, military investigators, and whistleblowers. To Phoenix commanders, these centers weren't about punishment. They were about speed. Every minute counted. A courier who cracked could reveal a tax collector. A tax collector could reveal a cadre. A cadre could reveal an entire cell. Information flowed upward. Targets flowed downward. But the heart of Phoenix's kinetic power was not the interrogation centers. It was the PRUs, Provincial Reconnaissance Units. The PRUs were small, highly trained teams recruited from anti-communist militias, elite South Vietnamese forces, and occasionally former Viet Cong defectors. They operated with American funding, American weapons, and indirect CIA direction. Unlike regular soldiers, PRUs did not patrol or hold territory. Their mission was simple: go after individuals. Find them. Capture them if possible. Kill them if necessary. PRUs moved like ghosts through the countryside. They wore civilian clothes or black pajamas to blend with villagers. They traveled in unmarked vehicles. They carried suppressed weapons and acted on intelligence gathered hours earlier. In some provinces, their operations were methodical, targeting high-ranking VCI members after weeks of surveillance. In others, the lines blurred. Raids became violent. Executions happened in the field. Suspects died before reaching interrogation. American advisors, officially forbidden from participating in killings, often rode along as observers, directing operations while maintaining plausible deniability. Phoenix leadership insisted that the program focused on neutralization, not assassination. But PRU activities told a different story. Captured Viet Cong members reported ambushes, midnight raids, disappearances. Villagers described men dragged from homes and never seen again. The PRUs became both feared and essential. Their effectiveness was undeniable. Entire VCI networks collapsed under pressure. Courier lines broke. Propaganda cells vanished. Tax collectors defected rather than risk being hunted down. But their brutality fed Phoenix's growing reputation, a program operating in shadows, using any tool necessary, accountable only to itself. Meanwhile, the lists kept growing. Names were added faster than they could be processed. Some were genuine threats. Others were based on revenge, misinformation, or local politics. And the machine kept moving. Blacklists circulated between provinces. PRUs deployed nightly. Interrogation centers filled with suspects. CIA reports celebrated neutralizations, a term that masked the reality of what was happening on the ground. Each success made Phoenix more powerful. Each abuse made it more controversial. By 1969, the program had become a dominant force in rural South Vietnam, feared by the Viet Cong, feared by civilians, and increasingly questioned by American officers disturbed by what they saw. The kill network was now fully operational. And the world had no idea what Phoenix truly was, or what it was becoming. Chapter 3, The Numbers, the Scandals, and the Collapse of Control. By 1969, the Phoenix program had grown into a vast machine operating across every province of South Vietnam. Its reports flowed to Saigon, then straight to Washington. Charts showed steady progress, arrests rising, defections increasing, neutralizations mounting by the thousands. On paper, Phoenix looked like one of the war's most successful initiatives. But behind the numbers was a darker reality. The term, neutralized, was intentionally vague. To Washington, it meant removing a Viet Cong agent from the battlefield, through arrest, defection, or death. But in the field, the distinction often disappeared. Provincial reports recorded neutralizations without specifying how they occurred. When pressure increased, some districts inflated numbers or blurred categories to satisfy superiors. By 1970, Phoenix claimed over 20,000 neutralizations. But how many were arrests, and how many were killings? No one could say with certainty. Different branches used different reporting standards. Some PRU commanders admitted privately that dead suspects were easier to classify than detainees who required transport, interrogation, and paperwork. The ambiguity became a shield that hid abuses, and a weapon that fed criticism. Rumors began leaking out: innocent villagers detained, suspects tortured to death, local chiefs using Phoenix to eliminate personal enemies or political rivals. Some American advisors were horrified. Others looked away. The war demanded results. And the Phoenix numbers kept rising. The first large scandal emerged when investigators discovered that intelligence centers were holding detainees for weeks without due process. Some were beaten. Some disappeared. When questioned, local officials insisted they were VCI sympathizers. But evidence was often thin, based on rival accusations or vague suspicions. The tipping point came in 1971 when U.S. Congressman Pete McCloskey visited Saigon and saw Phoenix reports firsthand. He was stunned by what he read, and by the lack of documentation behind the deaths listed as neutralizations. His testimony sparked a wave of media investigations. Soon, journalists uncovered disturbing cases: villagers killed because of mistaken identity, suspects shot during escape attempts, blacklists filled with errors, informants paid to accuse rivals. American newspapers began calling Phoenix a murder program. Human rights groups described it as a campaign of systematic extrajudicial killings. The CIA pushed back, arguing the abuses were local deviations, not official policy. But the damage was done. The controversy reached its peak in 1972 during official congressional hearings. Former Phoenix officers testified that the system lacked oversight, that killings were common, and that the pressure to produce results created an environment where mistakes were inevitable, and often fatal. The CIA defended Phoenix as a legitimate counterinsurgency program, essential to dismantling the Viet Cong infrastructure. They pointed to captured documents, defectors, and disrupted networks. But even internal CIA memos admitted the obvious: Phoenix grew too fast, spread too widely, and eventually operated beyond effective control. Meanwhile, in Vietnam, the war was shifting. US troop levels were falling. Political chaos grew in Saigon. The Viet Cong intensified their operations, adapting to Phoenix methods and rebuilding cells underground. The program's centralized structure struggled to track an increasingly decentralized insurgency. By late 1972, Phoenix was faltering. Internal discipline weakened. American advisors withdrew. South Vietnamese forces, stretched thin, could no longer sustain the program's massive intelligence network. The numbers continued to rise, but the system behind them was collapsing. When the Paris Peace Accords were signed in 1973 and US forces began leaving the country, Phoenix, at least officially, ended. The CIA reclassified documents, closed intelligence centers, and withdrew advisors. PRUs were disbanded or absorbed into local forces. But the legacy of Phoenix did not disappear. To some, it had been a necessary counterinsurgency tool that crippled the Viet Cong's political core. To others, it was a case study in how targeted killing programs can spiral into abuse when oversight collapses. Either way, Phoenix had rewritten the rules of modern warfare. It had introduced a new kind of battlefield, one where the enemy was not an army, but a list of names. And that battlefield would shape conflicts long after Vietnam. Chapter 4, The Moral Cost, Torture, Rogue Operations, and the Shadow of Assassination. As Phoenix expanded across South Vietnam, its greatest enemy wasn't the Viet Cong. It was the moral collapse happening inside the program itself. What began as a centralized intelligence effort slowly devolved into a network of decentralized strike teams, interrogation centers, and local forces answering to no one. By the early 1970s, multiple investigations revealed a disturbing truth. Phoenix was no longer a controlled CIA initiative. It had become a system that mixed intelligence, paramilitary action, revenge, corruption, and political manipulation. At the heart of the moral crisis were the interrogation centers. Official guidelines demanded humane treatment and due process. But the reality inside many facilities, especially in contested provinces, was far different. Testimonies described prisoners tied to beds, electrodes attached to sensitive areas, buckets of water used for simulated drowning, and sleep deprivation lasting days. Some detainees were beaten into giving names. Others died before providing anything useful. In provinces where the Viet Cong operated freely, Phoenix interrogators worked under immense pressure to produce intelligence fast, pressure to meet neutralization quotas, pressure to show progress. And pressure leads to shortcuts. CIA oversight was supposed to limit abuses, but the agency relied heavily on South Vietnamese partners who had their own agendas. Local officials used Phoenix to settle disputes or eliminate rivals. Village chiefs accused political enemies of being Viet Cong to remove them from the community. Informants fabricated intelligence for payment, knowing Phoenix teams would act quickly, sometimes violently. Even PRUs, once considered elite, struggled to maintain discipline. Their missions were high risk and often carried out at night, far from oversight. Some units executed suspects on the spot, claiming they resisted arrest. Others staged escape attempts to justify shootings. These tactics were not official policy, but they became common practice. America's involvement added another layer of complexity. US advisors were officially forbidden from participating directly in killings. But in the field, the lines blurred. Some rode along on operations. Some provided target lists. Some looked away when detainees were mistreated. As the war intensified, the Phoenix program became a symbol of everything murky about counterinsurgency warfare: the use of intelligence for lethal action, the reliance on informants, the absence of accountability, the moral fog of targeting individuals based on incomplete information. The scandal exploded when leaked reports revealed specific cases of abuse: children detained because their fathers were suspected VC, farmers beaten because they refused to provide names, suspects tortured into confessing to roles they never held. Each story chipped away at the program's legitimacy. In Washington, congressional hearings brought former Phoenix advisors to testify. Some defended the program as essential. Others described it as chaotic, cruel, and uncontrolled. One witness famously called Phoenix a program of assassination, triggering political shockwaves. The CIA pushed back, arguing that Phoenix was a legitimate counterinsurgency effort aimed at dismantling an enemy political structure. But even internal CIA documents acknowledged deep flaws: poor oversight, local corruption, and inconsistent training. By 1972, the moral cost of Phoenix was undeniable. It taught a brutal lesson: when intelligence, paramilitary action, and secrecy merge without tight control, abuses become inevitable. The program created a blueprint for modern targeted killing, but it also revealed the dangers of relying on opaque networks, informants with questionable motives, and lethal force applied in darkness. In the jungles of Vietnam, Phoenix targeted the Viet Cong. But in doing so, it also targeted the ethical foundations of the war itself. The damage was not only human. It was strategic. Villagers lost trust in the South Vietnamese government. Neutral communities turned toward the Viet Cong for protection. The moral collapse strengthened the insurgency Phoenix was meant to weaken. And as oversight vanished, another unintended consequence emerged: Phoenix became a prototype for future kill programs worldwide. Chapter 5: Legacy of Phoenix: How it shaped modern warfare. When the Phoenix program officially ended in 1973, it did not simply disappear. Its structures were dismantled, its centers shut down, its files sealed, but its ideas, its methods, and its logic lived on. Today, Phoenix is considered one of the most influential and controversial blueprints for modern counterinsurgency and intelligence-led warfare. Its first legacy is the concept of targeted elimination as a strategic tool. Before Phoenix, wars were fought primarily on battlefields. Armies confronted armies. Territory decided victory. Phoenix introduced a different idea: destroy the enemy not by fighting their fighters, but by eliminating the hidden political and logistical networks that sustain them. This idea influenced counterinsurgency doctrines across the world. When conflicts in Latin America, the Middle East, and Asia escalated, multiple governments quietly adopted Phoenix-style models: centralized intelligence centers, blacklists, informant networks, and rapid neutralization units trained to strike individuals instead of armies. Some programs remained controlled. Others repeated Phoenix's darkest mistakes. Its second legacy is the normalization of intelligence fusion centers. Phoenix pioneered the practice of merging military intelligence, civilian police, spies, local forces, and foreign advisors into a unified targeting structure. This became the foundation for modern Joint Special Operations Command systems and counterterrorism task forces used after 9/11. Today, fusion centers exist across the United States and other countries, integrating data from agencies that once worked separately. Many analysts consider Phoenix the first large-scale test of this model. The third legacy is the evolution of blacklist-driven warfare. Phoenix's lists, flawed, rushed, and often manipulated, introduced a powerful but dangerous idea: a war can be managed through databases and names, rather than front lines. Decades later, the same logic reappeared in the US Joint Prioritized Effects List in Iraq, drone strike target lists in Afghanistan, and Pakistan manhunting programs in counter-terror operations, biometric databases used in modern COIN efforts. Even digital surveillance systems used today echo the Phoenix mindset: identify individuals, track their networks, neutralize threats preemptively. The fourth legacy is the question Phoenix raised, and never answered: can targeted killing be controlled? In Vietnam, the answer was no. Oversight failed. Local corruption spread. Abuses multiplied. And in some provinces, Phoenix pushed civilians toward the very insurgency it intended to destroy. Modern programs still grapple with the same dilemma. Precision tools, drones, special forces, cyber surveillance, may increase accuracy, but they do not eliminate the ethical and political risks of targeting individuals in complex conflict zones. The fifth and final legacy is the shadow Phoenix cast on America's reputation. During congressional hearings, veterans described torture, arbitrary arrests, and killings done in secrecy. For years, the CIA insisted these were isolated deviations. But historians widely agree that Phoenix became, unintentionally, a symbol of the moral ambiguity of the Vietnam War. Even today, the word Phoenix triggers debate. Was it a necessary counterinsurgency tool? Or a reckless program that crossed the line between intelligence and assassination? The truth lies somewhere in between. Phoenix disrupted the Viet Cong infrastructure, forcing the enemy to adapt and fragment. But in doing so, it also exposed the cost of fighting shadows with shadows, a cost measured not only in human lives, but in political legitimacy. When Saigon fell in 1975, the Phoenix program ended physically. But its influence stretched forward into the 21st century. Every drone strike list, every counter-terror task force, every intelligence-led manhunt bears traces of it. The methods refined, the technology improved, the secrecy unchanged. Phoenix did not win the Vietnam War. But it changed how wars are fought. Its legacy is a warning wrapped inside a method. Targeted killing can be effective, but it always comes with a price. The war that didn't end on the battlefield, the Phoenix program, was never meant to win the war in Vietnam. It was designed to break an enemy hidden in the shadows, an enemy made of couriers, political officers, tax collectors, and underground leaders who never appeared on front lines. But in the end, Phoenix revealed something far deeper. That modern wars are not only fought with armies, but with intelligence networks, names on lists, and decisions made in secret backrooms. Phoenix dismantled parts of the Viet Cong's infrastructure. It disrupted operations, shattered cells, forced defections, and exposed the unseen machinery of insurgency. But it also crossed boundaries, moral, legal, and political, that still haunt military and intelligence agencies today. Its legacy lives on in counter-terror programs, drone strikes, fusion centers, and special operations doctrines around the world. For better, and for worse. In Vietnam, Phoenix ended. But in the wars that followed, its shadow returned, refined, digitized, and more powerful than ever. Thank you for watching Secrets of the Armies. If you want more real stories buried in classified archives, covert units, and the hidden architecture of global warfare, subscribe. Because the past still has secrets, and we're only just beginning to open them.